can't wait. Is it say it's recording on yours?
What?
Yeah, it's recording. All right. Welcome to another Travel Tuesday. I'm here with Savage Savvy.
What's up?
She is from Charleston, South Carolina, one of my good friends. I'm repping the Folly Beach shirt today, one of my favorite places in the world. Today we're going to be talking about traveling to a third world / developing country. But before we get started, I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit. So when did you begin traveling and why did you begin traveling?
So I started traveling the summer of 2017. So I was going into my sophomore year of college. And I started traveling because my aunt, she was working for this American education group in Hanoi, Vietnam, and she was getting Vietnamese students into colleges in America. So because I have already got into college, I was helping them prepare for the ACT, the SAT, and then helping them with higher vocabulary words so that they could write better essays to get into college.
Cool. And
so it was an internship.
Oh, it was an internship.
Yes.
Did you have a company?
No, she was working for the company, which was AEG, the American Education Group. And she needed an intern, and she needs extra help during the summer because we got to prep for all the SATs and ACTs. So
I might have to go do that, although I wouldn't be able to teach ACT or SAT prep. But
exactly, and I'm not I'm not an English major. I just, because it's my first language, I was able to teach it.
I taught English in Spain, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know half the stuff, but so since Vietnam, where else did you go? Either on that trip or after that trip, where else have you been traveling?
Throughout the world, I think I've been to 13 countries total. I have been to Canada, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Haiti, I've been to the Bahamas, I've been to Jamaica. So that is all within North and Central America that I've been to. And then Europe-wise, I have been to the United Kingdom.
The United States.
The United States. No, the UK. I've been to Britain, and then I've been to France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and then I have been to Vietnam and Thailand in Asia.
Damn, I didn't realize you've been to all those.
Yeah, I've been very lucky to travel.
Your first place was Vietnam, though?
My very first place was actually, I guess Canada was my first place. But I don't think Canada really counts as much. So my first big trip was when I was 16 years old. My grandparents took me to Great Britain.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And what is like your, I guess, travel style on most of these? Do you usually go by yourself or with friends, or like you said, with your grandparents, or do you backpack in hostel life, or is it more luxury stuff?
The older I have gotten, it has become more of a backpacker, less luxury, because obviously when I was younger, when I was 16, I was with my grandparents. So we were staying at nicer places just because my grandparents aren't going to be in a bunk bed at a hostel, you know?
Right.
But for me, whenever I started traveling by myself, that was how I preferred to travel. Because I feel like you immerse yourself in the culture more. So
yeah, I can't wait to go back to another hostel.
I love it. I've been to a hostel actually in the States. My friend Izzy, my old roommate, she and I were driving up to a music festival, and we stayed in Washington, D.C., and we were at this international hostel, and we made the coolest friends. And
was it a good one?
Yeah, it was a nice hostel.
I've heard mixed things about hostels in the U.S.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
It was probably super expensive compared to...
It was like $20, but...
Oh, that's not bad.
It's not too bad.
Not like $2, though.
Yes, nothing compared to like a $2 hostel.
Right. Alrighty, cool. So before we get started on your experience in third world / developing countries, can you break down, I know you did a little bit of looking into it, what's the difference between developing third world, second world countries?
So the term first, second, and third world countries came after the Cold War, and places like the United States, Japan, Canada, and then Europe were all considered first world countries because they're not communist countries. But then places like Russia, China, Cuba, and Vietnam, those all are communist countries, so those are considered second world countries. And then third world countries were places like India, Africa, in the Middle East, and they're kind of like, we don't really have a side, like we don't really care, and they kind of just got thrown under that bus. And unfortunately, because of their economy, third world countries are associated with being like poorer countries. So that's why terms like developing countries started coming to use during the 90s, early 2000s, because Vietnam didn't really like being considered a second world country. They preferred developing country.
Developing.
And a developed country is just an industrialized country.
Okay.
So by 2020, they were supposed to be fully developed. I'm not sure if Corona has put that on pause, but
on that, yeah.
Cool.
So we're going to go into your experiences in Vietnam and Thailand. And from what I understand, Vietnam is now a second world / developing country, and Thailand's still considered third world?
They are a third world country, but Thailand is a fully developed country.
Ah.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense. Alrighty, so starting off, your experience in Vietnam, what area did you stay in? And you said you were teaching English or helping English students with their ACT and stuff. But give us a little bit more detail on what you were doing there and like what your schedule was like. Did you get to travel around a bit? Or were you kind of just stuck in one place teaching most of the time?
So I was living in Hanoi, which is the northern capital of Vietnam. And Hanoi, it's kind of more laid back because South Vietnam is where you're going to find a lot more of the communist people down in Ho Chi Minh City. But Hanoi was where I spent most of my time. Monday through Friday, I was working 9 to 5. But there was one week where we had like a summer break. So I did have 2 weeks off. And during those 2 weeks, I was traveling by myself throughout the country. And every weekend, I would take weekend vacation trips by myself.
Nice.
So one thing I did, I walked up to a backpacker hostel in the city and I was like, hey, I know that y'all go on little adventures on the weekends. I want to join you guys and I want to sign up for this adventure. And so it was an adventure where you walk 10 miles a day and you're hiking in these mountains, these rice fields, and it's hot and it's humid. And they're like, you don't want to do this. Like it's 20 miles of hiking. Like it's not just walking in a park. You're going up a mountain side. And I was like, sign me up. Like I'm in. I want to go to Mai Chau is what it was called. So it was south of Hanoi. And it was deep in the mountains. And so I get there and I was the only girl that signed up.
Oh my gosh.
There was one guy from Switzerland, one guy from Germany, and then 3 guys from Britain, and then me. And then our short, tiny Vietnamese tour guide.
So how many people was it in total? Just you? 5? 6?
It was me and then 5 boys.
Was it a good experience overall?
Overall, it was an amazing experience. We hiked so much, and I mean, we were tired, but it was worth it. The views was worth it, and we got to stay with. We were with. It was called a homestay, so we would stay with the families, and we stayed in these homes that these people literally made from bamboo, and they don't have air conditioner. They don't have like, separate rooms really. They just have like a sleeping room, and we slept with like a mosquito net around us, and it was
such an amazing experience.
Yes.
I love staying with the locals.
It opens your eyes. It really does. And seeing like a village that small and how everybody works together, it makes you very grateful for what you have when you come home.
Right. And what was that experience like being a girl all by yourself, not knowing anybody until you went on that trip with those few dudes?
My mom was freaking out. She was very nervous that I was by myself, 19 years old, in this developing country traveling alone. Like, it does sound a little crazy, but despite the what people might think, it was probably one of the safest countries I have ever been to. I could walk around in Hanoi, so I would go out almost every night just to be in the city, and like I wasn't necessarily drinking every night, but I would make friends. And one thing I would do is just like walk around the lake. We lived on this lake, and it was this 10-mile lake. And one day I decided to walk 5 miles one way, and then I took like a taxi home, and then the next day I walked 5 miles the other way. So I knew the lake and I knew everything that was around it. So I could be walking at 2 a.m. on my way home from a bar and I would be fine.
Right.
But walking downtown at 2 a.m. from a bar, it's not that safe. But in Vietnam, guns are not legal.
Right.
And then neither are knives. Like, you can cook, obviously, and use a knife, but you can't go to a gas station like you can in Charleston, South Carolina, and buy an 8-inch knife, you know? So
yeah, that's one thing that made me feel so much safer in some of these countries, when I was like, I don't know if I feel safe, but then I heard like guns and knives were illegal, and I was like, it can't be like that bad.
You think I was gonna be mugged by a 5-foot Vietnamese guy? No.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Did you have any other like standout experiences while you were there?
Yes, I was walking around one of the main lakes in Hanoi called Hom Kim Lake, and it's just a mile long, but they shut it down every weekend, and everybody comes out. They're making food. People are dancing in the streets. They're performers. There's people selling things. It's like a festival almost, and it's every weekend. And I was walking around the lake, and this Vietnamese girl comes up to me who was speaking perfect English. And she was like, I want to be your friend. I know that you can teach me better English. And I was like, well, I've been here for 2 months and I can't find a place to get good ice cream. Show me where to find good ice cream, because that's all I wanted. And so she and I became friends. Her name is Nangang, but we called her Ni because it was easier to pronounce. And she and I actually became best friends. And one weekend, she and I went on a trip, just us girls. We left the city and we went to the beach. It was this little city called Haiphong. And we stayed with like somebody who she went to college with and their family. And it was another homestay and just a beautiful experience. And it was crazy.
Do you still stay in touch with her today?
Yes, we do still stay in touch.
Do you think you'll ever go back?
Yes, I hope so. When I go back, there's so many things I wish that I did that I didn't get to do, which one thing is a lot of people will buy a moped in Hanoi, which is northern Vietnam, or they'll buy one in South Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh. Either way, you start at one point and you're going to get to the other point. And by the time you get from point A to point B, you get to sell your moped to another backpacker. So you maybe lose $100. And
oh my gosh, dude, I'll go with you and do that. I've heard a lot of people talk about that.
You just drive down from north to south or south to north, and it's one of the most beautiful like roads views in the world. Like, it's amazing.
Right. And as you said, your mom and some other people were nervous of you being there. Did you ever feel unsafe or ever hear of any situations where people were in bad situations?
So I did feel unsafe, and I did come encounter with somebody who was a sex trafficker when I was in Ho Chi Minh City. I was very aware of my situation, though, and I was very smart about what I should do. But I was at my hotel at the very top bar, and I was just having one glass of champagne before I went to sleep because that was all I wanted. And this man approached me, and he was basically forcing me to come with him to his hotel to hang out with his friends. And he was a man from India, and I don't mean to he was not from Vietnam. He was traveling. He spoke perfect English, and he had like just Rolexes on him. And there was something off with him, and that he was wanting to hang out with me, who I'm like this backpacker, you know. It was very strange. And whenever I got off my elevator, I ended up hiding in a janitor's closet because I got off on the wrong floor, because I didn't want him to know what floor I got off. And I'm really happy I did that, because through the janitor's closet, I saw him following me, and I had like lost him, and it was crazy.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Damn. How did you just could sense something that was off? There wasn't.
Yeah, I heard of these wealthy looking men who are not from Vietnam coming and taking women, and you make money out of these women. Laos was next door to Vietnam, and Laos was the #1 sex trafficking places in Southeast Asia. So you did have to be careful, but I was aware of these things. And I actually, when I went to Vietnam, I specifically bought certain outfits to wear. I wasn't going to be in my tank tops and shorts like I am in Charleston.
Okay.
I'm wearing long flowy pants and t-shirts most of the time.
So that's one thing that, especially for girls over in that area, you would recommend, is getting some looser clothes and just being aware of
I do that. Yeah, you need to be more aware of the culture that you're going into. If it was a culture full of women wearing tight fitted clothes, then I would maybe feel comfortable wearing tight fitted clothes. But since women don't do that, it was just, even in my homestay, we had come back from a waterfall. So I was in my bikini, and the women, I mean, you should have seen the look on their faces. It was as if I just came home with a dead body. Like, they were just like, oh, this girl in this bikini. And like, I'm like, sorry. We just came out from a waterfall.
Yeah, that's something I learned a lot as well. Like, sometimes you just have to adjust to the culture and kind of do what they do just to fit in and not stick out. Especially in some of the countries where there are some issues of sex trafficking or drugs or cartels or whatever.
Yes.
So aside from that, I'm assuming you would recommend Vietnam to people, and just be aware of your surroundings and be cautious?
Yes. I mean, overall, just because I had that one little incident doesn't mean that ruined my trip. I mean, Vietnam is by far the most beautiful country out of every country I've been to. It is the most beautiful country. The people are so welcoming and will give you the shirt off their back, and it's amazing.
Yes.
So I would recommend Vietnam. My friend Nick, he had just graduated from high school, and his mom was like, well, if you want to go somewhere during the summer, I'll send you somewhere. And he's like, well, Savvy's in Vietnam, and I know she's been talking about going to Thailand. So he met me in Vietnam for a day, and he and I went to Thailand together. And that was a really cool experience as well.
That's what I want to hear about next. So how did you get from Vietnam to Thailand?
We flew, and it was maybe $100 round trip from Vietnam to Thailand and back, which was
How long of a flight is that?
It was maybe an hour-and-a-half flight.
Yeah, I was going to say, because they're not too far from each other.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny, a lot of people in Vietnam, their health providers are in Thailand. So a lot of people go get their teeth and yearly checkup. They go to Thailand and do that.
Really?
Because the medical field is just way more advanced.
Interesting.
In Vietnam.
How long were you and your friend in Thailand?
We were in Bangkok only for 6 days.
Did you stay there the whole time?
We did stay there the whole time. So I'm going back to Thailand whenever I can to see the rest of the country.
Yeah, no, I heard there's like 200 islands off of Thailand? Something like that?
There's a lot of islands, yeah. There's probably not that much.
Yeah, I've heard it takes like 2 months. Well, more than 2 months. 2 months to like get a good grasp of Thailand.
Yeah, I mean, we spent almost a week in Bangkok, their big city, and it was crazy how much we didn't even get to see. And we were exploring every day. I mean, I'm the kind of person, when I'm traveling, I want to be up at the crack of dawn until, I can't
function
my
anymore.
eyes open anymore. Like, let's go see stuff.
Right. What were some of your favorite experiences in Thailand?
In Thailand, we actually went to every single temple in Bangkok. That was one thing that we made a goal of ours. And it was actually we went during the two most religious days out of the whole entire year in Bangkok, Thailand. So alcohol was illegal to drink and buy during their two most religious days. So we go to Bangkok thinking we're going to party and we can't even drink.
That happened to me in Colombia, I think. What's their main religion there?
In Thailand, I believe most of them are Buddhist or Hindus.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think they have a big mix over there.
Yes, it is a very big mixture.
Yeah, cool. And you did the hostel life there as well?
We did the hostel life. The hostels was great. Maybe $5 a day.
Right.
We were eating street food. I mean, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner if we could. So
Right.
we maybe would have like one nice meal every now and then just to like feel fancy. But one nice meal, if you were like balling out, it would maybe cost you $25.
Really?
Yes.
Amazing.
$20 can get you breakfast, lunch, and dinner in Vietnam and Thailand.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then let me see. Was there any times in Thailand that you felt unsafe or any sticky situations that you got into?
No, Thailand was amazing. We had an amazing time there. It was safe. The only thing that you ever have to worry about, I really feel like, is pickpocketers. People do have to be smart because people are gonna take your stuff when you're traveling.
That's a good note to take. I had like a little zipper in the back of my pants where I put everything, so my pockets were always empty. But
smart.
Heck yeah. All right, and then one more question. While you were traveling by yourself in a developing or third world country, what were some of the biggest struggles you faced?
Some of the biggest struggles I faced.
Like, did you ever feel lonely or just like, I know you said you felt scared that one time, or anything like that?
I'm trying to think. I really didn't struggle whenever it came to in the back. Sorry, we got a kitten, so there's a lot of, they keep asking me questions about cats. I wouldn't. So one thing I guess that was different was Vietnam was a communist country. So after 12 o'clock, you weren't supposed to be drinking. And so a lot of places will have underground bars. So that was something you did have to be careful, because if you were caught, they were going to give you a fine.
Right.
And so, and not only were there selling alcohol after an illegal time, there was nitrous tanks at these places. And people would be blowing balloons, and you inhale and exhale out of these balloons. And it's a very fun time. But again, it's not illegal. But almost every single bar has these. I mean, it's crazy how the communist countries, a lot of them, they have these illegal things going on, but if you can kind of pay them off, they'll kind of just like look the other way, kind of thing.
Yeah. Interesting. Did you have any struggles or anything with transportation, like flying into their airport or on buses, or do they have trains over there, or were you mainly on buses?
They, in Vietnam, 9 million people were living in Hanoi, which is crazy. And so they can't fit that many cars. So about 90% of people in Hanoi are on moped, and that's how you get around. So I was getting around. You can take a taxi, and taxis are a thing, but taxis, the locals don't use taxis. Wow. So I was using Uber Moped. So, and you would do like a moped ride, and I'd be riding on the back of these Vietnamese mopeds, and it would be maybe 5 cents a ride.
Really?
because you're paying for the gas, and the gas was so cheap.
Did you have any language barriers over there? Or did most people speak English? You don't. I'm assuming you don't.
Most people spoke English, but there was, I mean, whenever I was traveling to these small villages, nobody was speaking English. Or the place that my aunt and I, where we were living in the city, it was a newly developed apartment building. So it wasn't, I couldn't find it on the maps. So I had to learn how to give directions in Vietnamese to my Uber mopeds and my taxi drivers. So I guess
that's such a cool experience.
Yeah, that was another challenge I had to overcome. But now I can sit here and I can tell you like Zay Chai, Zay Phi.
So that was one of my favorite parts about traveling. Was just like having no idea what the heck was going on or like where I was going. I was just like on the back of a bus hoping it was going in the right direction. Were most of their signs and stuff in like when you were walking around, if you got lost, like were there signs in English or was it
No. There weren't really any signs in English.
Yeah. But most people you could go up to and confidently get a response in English.
Most of the time.
Besides the small villages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dang. Did you have a cell phone when you were there?
I had a flip phone whenever I was over there. Yeah.
So you didn't have like Google Maps or anything?
Nope.
Nice. That's the best way to do it.
I know. I mean, I learned that city like the back of my hand. I was looking at the map today before we got on the phone just so I could like look at everything and I could still, I feel like I can still get around. So.
Right. Do you have any tips for anybody that's nervous about that? Because I know like here in the US, like we rely on Google Maps for everything. And when I tell people similar stories of that where it was like, yeah, you just like get on a bus and like you hope you're going the right direction, but you really don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for people who like want to do this but are nervous of that, like getting on the wrong bus and going in the wrong direction, or how did you confidently know where you're going?
I feel like it's all a learning process. I feel like you kind of have to throw yourself and put yourself out there into situations like that, because if you mess up, you're going to learn from that mistake and you're probably not going to do it again. So right. I feel like I had a good sense of direction. I can sit here and be like, okay, I know that the lake is behind me or in front of me. And so I can kind of,
base everything off that.
Certain. I feel like what you should do if you're going to be staying in a place, like I was staying in Hanoi most of the time, I had certain places where I can visualize and I know what's around it. And I'm like, all right, if I know where this is, then I can get home. So maybe find a certain spot, like pinpoint, and
like safety stuff. Yeah. Another thing that I found was just asking questions. Like when I was walking down the street, because I carried napkins with me and would write down directions, and I would ask every single person I passed. I'd be like, yo, is this like going the right direction? Most of the time they didn't understand me or didn't want to talk to me, but you'll eventually get some people who want to help you out.
Yes.
Alrighty. So for our last question, what advice do you have for anybody, particularly girls traveling to third world or developing countries by themselves for the first time?
My best advice is that, honestly, when it comes to going to developing and or third world countries, the plane ticket is going to be the most expensive thing. So once you get over there, it is the best time of your life. You don't need to be a rich person to travel. You can travel. You can go to these places by yourself and be safe. You don't have to have a buddy with you. You can just do it. And there are hostels over there that you can take planned trips with if you don't want to, go to My Chow by yourself, or if you don't necessarily want to buy a moped and travel from north to south. You don't have to. There's places that through these hostels, you can take a bus to Ho Chi Minh to Hanoi or vice versa. There's ways around not feeling alone when you are alone over there.
Right. 100%. That's what, staying in hostels, I think, is one of the biggest tips I have, which we'll have to do another episode sometime just on hostels, because it's still a question I get all the time of just like, but I've heard so many bad things, but like me personally, nobody I've ever met has ever had a bad experience. Or like,
I've been to, I think 5 hostels, and I have never had a bad experience.
yeah, and it's such a good way to meet people, especially if you're by yourself.
Yes. It's the best way to travel.
Yes. Do you prefer traveling by yourself over?
Yes. I think that certain people, it's hard to travel with, no matter how much you love them.
Yes.
And, I don't know. Traveling by yourself makes you really understand who you are.
Right.
Like you become way closer with yourself. I would love to travel with people, but
it has to be the right people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it definitely forces you out of your comfort zone to the max. Like,
exactly.
luckily I am such a social, like, talkative person. That's why I struggle sometimes trying to help people who are like kind of introverted or don't like being by themselves in like weird situations with people they don't know. But for me, like, I loved it. I was like walking into a hostel with 200 people that I had no idea anything about, but it was just like you instantly just click with them because you're all on like the same mind page.
Everybody's alone.
Yeah, and
I
it's
mean,
like
I would go out on, like, if it was a Friday night and I wasn't traveling, I'd go out to the bars and I'd just walk up to people. I'd be like, hey, like, I'm Savannah from Charleston. Like, what's up? Like,
yeah,
where are you from? Where are you traveling to? Where are you staying? Like, that's how you made friends.
right. Cool. So you would definitely recommend. And then do you have any things? So for a girl who's kind of scared of staying in the hostel for the first time, are there any safety precautions or things that they should look into before choosing a hostel? Or how'd you? I know you're kind of like you don't really have much fear in traveling by yourself, but if you were to put yourself in their shoes, what safety precautions would you take before choosing a hostel or things you would look into?
Honestly, if you Google best hostel in Hanoi, it's going to bring you the best results, and you can go and you can look at reviews. There's also certain websites, or you can check out Instagram pages, and you can go there, and if you through social media, you can actually learn a lot with hostels nowadays. So you don't have to go over there and go to a random one. You
Right.
can actually like look up everything about that hostel on your phone.
Yeah.
So that makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah. I think the first time, definitely, I would recommend like doing way more research.
Yeah.
Just to make yourself comfortable, and whoever's holding you back from going, if it's your parents or friends who are saying you shouldn't go there, it's too unsafe, do your research so you can have some like sort of plan just to tell them. But after like your first couple, it's like I was really just walking into random places, like this place looks cool, like whatever. But you'll definitely, like Savvy said a few times, you'll definitely just become more aware of different things as you travel, whether that's hostels, places that you should hang out, culture things that you should kind of conform to, and you'll just start picking that stuff up.
Yeah.
Is there any other advice or tips or things you want to say to any aspiring traveler like yourself?
I guess all I have to say is that the world, it's so big and there's so many amazing things that you have to go see, and staying in one spot your whole life, you're not going to be able to grow. You have to travel to grow, and traveling helps you understand other cultures and other people. That if everybody traveled to every country and saw how everybody lived, we would be getting along.
100%. It would end all the world problems.
You got to put yourself in other people's shoes. Like, traveling makes me so much more appreciative of where I'm from and how I live my life.
100%. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your wisdom on Southeast Asia and just overall traveling. And I'm sure we'll have another episode with Savage Savvy sometime in the near future.
Yes, thank you for having me on your show, Joey. This is awesome.
It was so much fun, and I can't wait to hear many more travel stories.
I know. I'll see you later. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.